like, when I get nervous, to just like apologize profusely to people. And then I have to remind myself, like, I have nothing to apologize for if I don't know something, like, that. So, it's things that I normally do. I disconnect too. Like if I get very, very stressed out from something, if I'm working, like if I'm doing like Hack the Box even or something like that, and I get very, very stressed out, I disconnect and I come back to it later, and sometimes that helps.
That's a great suggestion. Doing something that you just enjoy doing, and you know that you're just gonna own a little bit that. And even if you don't, just getting that feeling of learning something can help already. And I heard you say that you say sorry too much sometimes. I definitely have the exact same thing, and even say sorry for things that I didn't do. Like if like my if I'm talking to my boss and his phone will ring, I'll say sorry for interrupting you. Well, I was talking to him and the phone was interrupting us, and I was like, why the heck did I say sorry for that? That I shouldn't be doing that. Thank you for your feedback. Really appreciate it. Hello, Mr. Hyrule. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you very much.
I was listening in, and I wanted to add a few things about how I deal personally with imposter syndrome, because I'm sure other people clearly also experience it, judging by how many people are in here. Um, but one thing that really helps me with dealing with imposter syndrome, I would like to say, is looking back at how much I've learned throughout the past. Let's say we look back at the past year and just comparing everything that I've learned and everything that I've, I guess you could say, overcome within that year. And even if like a year is too big of a time frame for some people, if they just started maybe 3 months ago, uh, even now, your knowledge has expanded far beyond what you may have expected it to. Or even if it hasn't, even if you haven't reached that point that you want to reach, you're still at least getting closer, and you're a lot closer than I guess you could say when you started. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Is just I didn't hear anybody else mention it just yet, so I wanted to throw that in. Is just compare essentially like how far you've come so far and everything that you've been able to overcome.
I love that one. I always try to say compare yourself to yesterday, not to other people, because that can get you very big imposter syndrome. And what I always think about as well is that human collective has this circle of knowledge, and there's two ways of dealing with infosec. You can either be inside the circle of knowledge and you can be using it to do your research and to work with it, or you can be trying to break the circle, to expand the circle a little bit, to expand the borders. And that is the most frightening work of all, in my opinion, because then you don't have, like, if you're working with others, you can still ask, hey, I don't feel so well. Can you help me a little bit? And he'll be like, oh, it's simple. You just have to do this and this in Python. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, of course, dummy. Why didn't I think about that? And it definitely won't cure that imposter syndrome, but it will help. Well, as if I'm doing some research while I'm trying to do some new things, that's going to be a lot harder for me because it makes me feel very insecure. Putting yourself in front of new things is frightening because that's the unknown, and the unknown is frightening. It's human nature, in my opinion. Hello, my friend IEE Brotherston. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
I just wanted to make a really quick recommendation based on what was mentioned just now about remembering how far you've come. One thing that's worked really well for me is having like a brag book, because I can't look back and remember what I did well. But if you write it down in that moment when you did a thing, and then you start building up all these moments, and then you can look back at your book or your notepad or whatever it is, and instantly see a list of like all these good things you had, or like compliments people have given you, and that sort of thing.
Great suggestion. I love that. And if your book gets full, that's something you should be very proud of. It's like, hey, I have this book,
Yeah,
50 pages, like, wow, it's already full. And it's also
absolutely.
Like at the moment, that achievement might seem like something incredible, and you're like, wow, I just discovered this new thing. And then, like a year later, you'll be like, yeah, duh, that's normal knowledge. Everybody knows that. And that's what I think is playing along in this game a little bit as well. It's like everybody thinks that what they know is what everybody knows. But that's definitely not the case. And I hope that people realize that everybody is at a different level. Like I have knowledge of different things and you have knowledge of other things, and it's what's normal to me is not normal to you. And that's something that I think we should realize is that everybody has their own travel, everybody goes their own way, but we haven't all been given the same chances and we all haven't been given the same start line. So it's very important that you stay inside of your life. And I know that you should move outside of your comfort zone, outside of your cocoon, but when it comes to comparing yourself, you shouldn't be moving too far outside of it. It always works best, in my opinion, if you compare yourself to peers that are like one level above you or a little bit above you. Because, for example, right now I've been put into a team which gives me a lot of anxiety because these programmers are really good. They know their stuff inside and out, and that gives me a lot of imposter syndrome because I thought I was pretty decent at Python. I could whip up a script if I wanted to, but then I saw this programmer at work, and I was like, wow, I'm not gonna be able to do that in maybe a year's time. And I know that feeling, it's normal to have, but it's also exciting for me because I know that if I stick with these people, I'm gonna be able to learn so much more than I ever would if I would stick with somebody who is more at like my level, who's dabbling in like the Python script, like every now and then they'll write the occasional script. But those people, they practically breathe Python, and it's impressive but also intimidating at the same time. That's not good for your mental health either, but in the same page, I should take that as a a way like to learn and to climb up. um yes, a pirate, hello, feel free to speak, by the way. I'm just babbling along.
Yeah, you're fine. I was just gonna say, like I definitely get that. Like I stopped trying to compare myself because I'd always feel like really, really, really bad at the end of the day. And then it took like friends that like it's exactly like you said, where you think everybody knows this, but it's taking friends that like message me and like, people don't know about this. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you know about this, and like, but not everybody knows about this, and whatever, and it takes like somebody else saying it to me to kind of do that. And I stopped comparing myself, like, just because at the end of the day, it makes me feel bad. And it actually detracts me for like, it stops me from working, like doing stuff that I need to do. I mean, like, I get intimidated because like, especially at work too. Um, it's the feeling that like, because like compared to like my senior penetration testers and stuff that work there, like me, where I'm just like finding little tiny things, and they're just like, okay, we found like this huge thing, and then it feels intimidating because you're just like, man, I worked really hard and all I got was just like some like information disclosure stuff, and that was it, and like, I think like my coworkers at one point had even told me to like just relax a little bit, that I'm doing fine, that I'm doing really good. And, what we see ourselves as doing like really bad sometimes, like, I try to push through. Like when I feel that way, like when I first started, like with like Hack the Box and like Try Acme and stuff, I couldn't get anything right. Like I couldn't get anything, and I was struggling, and it took me a while. It took me like a week or two before I actually started getting somewhere, and I was really frustrated every day. But like, like I said, I came back to it, and like stuff just started clicking. And then I noticed, you notice over time, like the comparison, like I noticed I got faster at stuff and I was getting better at stuff and whatever, but it's never ending because now I'm in a new environment and I'm in the same boat. Like, where, you know, sorry, I'm ranting about this, but like, I think that's the other thing too. Like, especially like as a woman, sometimes I feel like I have to prove myself a little bit more under some circumstances. I'm sure that other people feel that way. I don't know if that's like just like because I'm a woman or anything, but sometimes I feel like I have to prove myself just like a little bit more for people to like take me seriously. And that causes anxiety for me. I don't know.
That's definitely a great point you make there. It's like that's part of proving yourself. It's something that what I found works best to prove yourself is to, in my opinion, help other people and help them by providing value for them. And sometimes that can be very hard, especially if you're fighting against these high level people who are 5 levels above you, as a matter of say. And especially I think if you have like if you are like a woman, I think it's a little bit harder, like you say, to actually make your voice heard, because I think a lot of men, and I don't think this is a bad, I don't think this is something that should be judged upon, I should say, because I don't think it's something that men can do something about, but I do
I
think,
don't think it's a conscious thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, but I do think that if we realize it, we can actually change something about it. And I've been I've been seeing the same thing in tech for years, ever since I got there. There's so little women in tech as well. And it's like I just wish there was more women in tech because they have a lot more creative ways of thinking about problems, and it helps a lot to have a different viewpoint. I think that diversity is definitely a great thing, and I just wish it was more in our little beautiful infosec community. Sorry, a little bit of a side rant there. Hello, peace. Let's see, peace and love, peace and love. Wow, that's a great hashtag. How are you doing, my friend? Or not? You can feel free to speak, Mister Pennywise.
Oh, sorry, I had the mic off.
Oh,
But
that's not the
no, not just saying thank you. This was a great room, great takes on there, and I think it's probably been said, but it's normal to feel uncomfortable in tech because everything's changing. There's so much diversity, and in a way, I mean, if you ever do feel comfortable in your knowledge, you're you're probably in the wrong place and you're probably wrong. I mean, because you're never going to learn it all. There's always things to learn. You can, I mean, you can be mentally stable and comfortable, but the minute that you decide that, you know, you're on top of things and you're great, you're probably stagnant. I don't want to put pressure on people, but that's technology, right?
Definitely. The people who think they know everything are probably the greatest fools because they
It's
don't know how
definitely
much
true.
there's so
That's
much
all I have
to
to say for
learn.
now. Thanks, guys.
My pleasure. Thank you for the input. I really appreciate it. Um, what I wanted to add to that was I what I heard you say as well, and I don't remember what triggered it, but something triggered that in me that for me, I'm slightly autistic. I have ADD, and those two things they bring a problem into my life as well. But I'll go more into that later. Feel free to say something, a pirate. By the way, I don't know how to lead in you guys, so if you want to speak, feel free to speak and interrupt me.
Yeah, really quickly, I wanted to throw in before we get too trailed off. Earlier, you guys were talking about you were mentioning Python, the Python devs that you work with, and a pirate was mentioning the senior penetration testers at their company. I wanted to mention like a big factor into how good people are, like especially like our coworkers, is that simply they've been doing what we're working on longer than like you have. And even if they haven't, they may have just been doing it at a higher caliber. So it's almost, I wouldn't say it's necessarily wrong, but it's almost wrong to compare yourselves to each other, because you guys aren't necessarily in like, you guys don't have the same training and you haven't invested the same amount of time in order for your work to be comparable. So, like, for example, if I spent the 10 years I spent playing RuneScape doing ethical hacking, I'd most likely be a lot further than I am right now. But here we are at the beginning of the journey, still learning. So, you know, it'd be wrong if I was to compare myself towards somebody who did spend 10 years doing it and then wonder why I'm not getting the same results. You know what I mean? So it's definitely like, it's nice to remember that, like, sometimes like where you are right now is still great for the amount of time that you've invested in it, and that the path, like the where your coworkers are currently, is definitely achievable if you devote as much time. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the same amount, but as long as you work towards that goal and you devote yourself towards it, it's definitely achievable.
Definitely great input. Thank you very much. And to be honest, you gotta get those gains, man. Like, what the hell are you saying? XP above everything.
Yeah, definitely, right.
Sorry about that. Uh, Definitely some great points. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I'm sorry, a pirate. I interrupted you when you were going to say something.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I have ADHD too, and what I was undiagnosed for many, many years. So I would get, what happens is like when I wasn't on medication and stuff, like I would get these lulls, and where I just, like, I couldn't feel like I felt like I couldn't do anything. And then, you get the hyper focus moments where people are just like, how did you read that much in a night and get all that work done? I think I'm definitely going to take the advice with, like, looking back at your work, because I've like I keep notes of everything, and I find myself like using them occasionally, even now, like when I need to look something up. And one of the things too, like, just maybe being open with people. Like I've been a little bit more open when people ask me, like, are you okay? Are you doing okay? If I'm not okay, I'll just be like, no, I'm not doing so great right now, and that, like, Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter have really been like, I've made some great friends here where I can just talk if I need to them about, like, whatever. And, but like, in terms of a lot of them, like the mental health stuff, it took me going to see somebody because I was so depressed, and I was just like not talking to anybody at one point, and I stopped, like, completely, like, communicating with people, to realize, hey, there's an issue here, and I have a problem, and I don't really know how to solve it. And like, I did, and I'm really thankful that I did that. That I, opened up and went to go see, like, a therapist and a psychiatrist and stuff, because then I found out, like, oh, I do have some problems here and there, and they can be worked on. And I try to, like, I'm not, I don't, obviously meds are not for everybody or whatever, but it worked a hell of a lot for me. Like, like, when I'm on my ADHD meds, like, I can actually focus, and I actually talk to people. I actually talk. That was something I never did before. So, I mean, like, reaching out when like, you're really down, and talking to somebody can be really helpful and beneficial. And like, don't be afraid to tell somebody that you're not okay or that thing is wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Great points. Thank you for sharing that. That took some courage, and I really appreciate that. Because, like, I definitely don't want, like you say, people shouldn't be afraid to go to a psychiatrist or see a friend, but they shouldn't be ashamed either. Because, like, or it was the other way around, I don't remember. They shouldn't be ashamed, and they shouldn't be afraid. Because I could remember that going to a psychiatrist, it was quite shaming, because in my surroundings nobody went to a psychiatrist, nobody talked to anybody, and My dad, I love him to death, but he's one of those tough guys. He works in construction, so I really couldn't. I had the feeling that I couldn't go talk to him about this stuff, and I could talk to my mom about this stuff, of course, but it's different, you know. Sometimes it really helps to get the outside perspective of a stranger who hasn't lived with you for 20 odd years, who doesn't know your quirks yet, to discover you again. It's like sometimes a new guy comes into a company and he has a pretty good idea because the other people have been staring themselves blind at the problem. So it always helps sometimes to get, it can always help to get outside help. And having a friend is definitely important, but it's also hard, I've noticed. And not for myself, but for my wife. She also has depression, and I have permission from her to talk about this, by the way, because she realizes it helps people. She's quite depressed, and it's partially because she thinks nobody likes her, and that all stems from a lot of anger that she has towards everything. She can be mad at traffic, and she can come barging in, and she can stay mad for a couple of hours, and that behavior drives away people, of course. So she has a hard time getting friends, but also keeping friends. And I think in infosec, I'm blessed to have so many great friends and to have met so many great people along the journey. But I also feel like once I turn off that computer, that I'm completely alone. And I know it's again a very privileged situation where I'm in, where I have so many beautiful followers that do so much for me. But of course, the moment I turn off that computer, I'm alone again, and it's with my own thoughts because my wife goes to bed at a proper hour. She has to get up at a proper hour. Usually stay up until 1 or 2 a.m. And I work a little bit because I can't sleep well. I have fibromyalgia, pain condition, makes me sleep terrible. So I'd rather stay up and do something productive than lay in bed with my eyes open all night. That's not what I like to do. I'd rather work until I'm tired. So it 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 definitely has a feeling of being alone, but it's quite liberating to me because when I'm in that state, I don't have to I don't have to pretend I am somebody else. And don't get me wrong, I am not pretending to be some kind of stranger on the internet. You guys know me a little bit by now. I am the person that I claim to be, but when I'm alone, it's like I can do whatever I want, you know. I can just pull off my pants and work in my underwear. It's not a problem. Nobody's gonna judge me for it. But if I'm at work, I can't really, well, I can do that, but I don't think I'll be working there for long. Um, so yeah, it's kind of liberating, and that's what I also want to talk about a little bit as well. Is that like you said before, you guys, that autistic side is important for me as well because it makes me take everything literally. It makes me like if I write something, it's usually get interpreted a little bit differently than I meant it. So I've learned over the years through the help of a psychiatrist to deal with my ADD and with my autism. But I know a lot of people who haven't been as fortunate and, like you say, who haven't been diagnosed yet, which is something I find terrible that people have to live with it. From one side, of course, if they live with it, if they don't have a problem about it, then that's a different story. But I know that there might be quite a lot of people who do have some problems with it without even realizing it. They might be like, oh, I can't focus on anything, blah, blah, blah. No, bro, you have ADD or ADHD. You might have some problems there because you can focus on the stuff you love. You can't focus on the stuff you hate. That's a different story. Uh, Hello,
That's so
welcome, Ben.
true.
How are you doing?
That I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
Awesome. Would you like to add anything to the topic?
I was just gonna say that's a really good point that you're making.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I also think it's like something that should be talked about a little bit more because I think it gets muffled away a little bit sometimes behind the oh I got this bounty and I got a job there and blah blah blah. I think it sometimes gets muffled away a little bit. People can have problems, and
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, dude.
especially if you
Wes, he's trolling. He's trolling.
sorry.
I put my balls in your jaw? Balls
Roy
in your
Lee.
jaw.
Yeah, they're trolling.
Can I?
Get up above.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What is the topic of conversation?
Mental health and infosec. Do you have anything to add, my friend?
Can we just agree? I reckon we should stay there for a bit and have a chat because I'm genuinely interested. You know,
Sorry, do you mind repeating yourself? What?
Yeah, I think Riley and Ben are trolling you, Wes.
Yeah.
no, never. Can I put my balls in your
All right, there we go. So, sorry about that, guys. So I think somebody else did want to say something about that topic, but I don't.
Really quick, it's interesting that we're bringing up trolling in general because, like back in the day, like when people first like started trolling and everything, like you know in the 90s and whatever, like that was a real outlet for people to just get out whatever the hell they wanted to get out and feel heard and not feel like they had a voice, even if it was something that people would totally disagree with or be like completely crazy. I wonder, like it's crazy how like things have just morphed today in today's society, and like people have created whole groups and everything since that. But yeah, just want to bring that up.
That's a great point as well, and that's why I don't really mind if people come in and troll. It's like, hey, they need to get that out of their system. Let them get it out. I don't mind. I'm just gonna cut it out of the YouTube video anyway. I don't want to get demonetized because of it, but if they want to troll, let them go ahead, or I'll bleep it or something. But yeah, it's sometimes people do when they troll. Sometimes they are projecting their own insecurities as well, and that's something that I've been guilty of in the past because I was talking to my boss recently and we had a conversation that was a bit difficult and I lashed out at him because I had some troubles at home. I was talking to him, it was getting quite difficult, and suddenly I was really angry at him and I lashed out, and that was because I was projecting my own problems onto our conversation. And I should never have done that, but it's something human, and I don't think I should blame myself too much for it either. I should realize it happened, learn from my mistakes, and move on there. But I don't. I know myself. I've been laying awake for that for a couple of days until I got to apologize to him. I'm that kind of person who gets annoyed by it. Hello, my friend MC Frontrun. How are you doing? How's the crypto doing? Is Ethereum still going up so much?
Hey, yeah, I think we had a bit of a pullback this last week, but yeah, it's been I guess the month of December or November has been very good in crypto space. I wanted to add about the trolling. There's with anything, like there's a time and a place, right? So like there's an appropriate time to do that. I love to make fun of people. I tease them, friends of mine, we give each other shit, right? Like we do that all the time. We make fun of each other or where they're from or whatever aspect you can think of, but it's all from a place of, love. And that comes across, I think, I would hope so. Sometimes when, I'm doing that to somebody who's not familiar with me, it doesn't. But once you get to know, someone's personality, then it's appropriate. But, if we're having like a serious conversation about mental health, probably not a good time to jump in with a bunch of, trolling comments. So it is a tact, like an etiquette thing. And there's a time, comedy is all about timing anyways, right? So you got to pick your moment. That's all I wanted to say.
definitely a great point. And like you say, I think we should take this topic very seriously as well. It's hard to appreciate how much problems could be fixed with a good conversation often. And it's not that everybody knows every single letter in the alphabet, it's just that combining them in a different order can have a completely different effect on people. And that's what my psychiatrist has learned me, that sometimes you just need to hear the right words, and sometimes you need to hear the right words coming from the right people. Now, trolling is definitely not the right thing, but sometimes it also carries a bit of truth in it. And like I've had a few trolls as well, and I don't really mind. It's like, yeah, you're trolling me, but I think it's kind of funny. You're highlighting my issues. So the best thing I can do from that is learn while you're at it and laugh along with you at myself. I'm human. I don't have to be perfect. Like, yeah, I can make mistakes. And so, look, I know I don't want to talk too much about myself, but like for the courses, people have accused me that I'm not experienced enough to teach and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but those those insecurities you should put aside because, like we said before, imposter syndrome is a real problem sometimes, and it can prevent you from doing things that would greatly benefit other people sometimes. So, like, don't let yourself get stopped from these insecurities. Is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. The way you handle bad actors or trollers or someone who's misbehaving or trying to make fun of you is more important than than anything, right? Like if you can laugh it off, if you can not let that get to you, not let you get down based on somebody else's, for whatever reason they're doing that. It could be completely unrelated to you, right? So the way you handle that, and I don't know, there's more of a not an infosec thing, but more of a society thing where like everybody's afraid to see anything offensive, right? We need to be in a safe space, and we have to block everybody who disagrees with our opinions. And you got to have thick skin. You have to be able to see offensive stuff because the world is full of offensive things. And if you just shut yourself off from all of that, you're actually missing a lot of the story. You just can't let it get to you. Is all. You got to be strong enough to be able to handle the adversity in life.
I agree to a degree. It's like, yeah, you can be my enemy, but if I really, if you really bring negativity into my life, I'm gonna block you because I can't handle negativity. I'm gonna be plain and simple about that. I think the world is divided into negativity and positivity, and you decide where you want to spend your eye and your time on. And of course, you also have to take that negativity into account. I do, as long as it's constructive. But if it keeps being unconstructive time after time after time, you can be sure that that block button is gonna get hit.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, if it's something that's, I don't know, it's a tough thing to decide or to even know, like, because I want to know I want to know what's going on, and I don't want to shut myself off into a bubble where, every opinion is reinforcing my own, right? Like I want to be exposed to all of it, but then I don't want, something to be holding me back or distracting me either. So it is tough. You don't necessarily know, and there's no rule book or anything to tell you what to do on this, but it should be a personal choice.
I love the fact that you say that because for me that's definitely a great point. There's no rule book to life, and I know that this might be a strange way of thinking, but I think that no man or woman has the right to have authority over me unless they deserve my respect. And that can be in many different ways, but I'm not gonna like let somebody tell me that I can't do something if they haven't done it first and then experienced firsthand what it's like. Going back to this courses thing again, everybody says, or these trolls, they say that making courses is easy. It's definitely not easy. I invite everybody to try it, to make a course and see how easy it is for themselves. And I think that it's definitely a good thing to keep those people around because I also want to know what my enemies are doing to a degree, and I want to know, and I keep referring to them as enemies, but that's only because they're trolling. If we have a decent conversation and it's like, hey, I don't appreciate the trolling, and they're like, because that's what I always try to do first. I really don't appreciate the trolling, and if they continue to do it after that, well, then of course they're gonna get blocked. But it's also important that you have a goal in mind for life, in my opinion. And of course, these things are all my opinion. But I think life is very limited. You only have one. You can use it however you want. It's your thing. But I choose to use my life the way I want it, and that's to. I try to think of the like there's no real point to life except being the morally best person that I can be. And I know that definition is very broad, but it helps me get through things. So that's just what I wanted to say. Pirate.
I just had a question for you guys. I'm just curious on what you guys think about like the mental health spaces that we have at the conventions right now, at like DEF CON and stuff, where people can go in and relax and maybe talk to somebody if they need to. Just what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's very important to have that to really like find somebody who's been through the same thing as you, and not just a very specific scenario. I'm not talking about, hey, I've had this bug specifically, and that bug very technically went wrong there. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But more like, hey, I got this bug, it was a duplicate, and I was super, super frustrated about it. And to just be able to tell somebody who knows what you're talking about and who also realizes how tough it can be in that situation, and to just hear their thoughts about what they've been going through. That's why I think it's so valuable to hear your guys' opinions as well. I take a lot from these talks, so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your experiences here. I know it mustn't be easy, but it's something that, like, those, if you are at a convention, I think every convention should have it, to be honest. It's just like, why not, right? I don't see a reason why not. I don't know if you guys have had any experiences, by the way, but with these these spaces, but it's just like a small separated space where you can talk to somebody about your problems. And I wish we could have that, like like a little session like we're having right now, you know, like just digitally somebody sitting there or a group of people are sitting there waiting for you to talk to them if you want to. Maybe that's an idea for us to set up, you know, just somebody, just have like a group of people to talk to. But I also think it can also be a bit dangerous in the sense that if you have somebody who isn't trained very well or who gives some bad advice, then you might have a different problem altogether. So you really want to vet the people who are giving advice, of course, a little bit. You don't just want to have anybody on board. That's what I think is important as well. Don't know how you guys think about that. If just anybody should do that, or if maybe like somebody should look at who does that, and who's to decide who does that, right? Who's to decide who can talk in those spaces? Any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I I've always I trust people, individuals, but I don't trust authorities. So, you know, if anyone who's telling me what to do or this is for your own good, like I always want to do the opposite, right? Like they say, don't jump off the bridge. Well, I want to jump off the bridge, see what happens. But an expert, you know, and someone who's, you know, a psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever, who's been through training. I mean, they're going to know, you know, specifics on certain things that can help, in a general sense. But yeah, it is hard to know who to trust. And then yeah, and then if everybody's saying I should trust that person, my default is to be like, no, why should I? Or everyone's saying to do this, like, well, why? What's I want to understand the reason, and sometimes you can't. Like sometimes there is no explanation, but and you just have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with not knowing what what the solid answer is, I guess.
Yeah, but I can agree with you in that. Like the example that I have with my wife, if she wouldn't agree with me talking about it, then I would have a very hard time finding somebody who I would trust talking about that as well. That's something that wouldn't be easy for me, to be honest. And even if I have a big problem myself, I didn't even trust the people that are close to me, let alone a stranger sometimes. So that's also a big factor that comes into play. But on the other hand, I think especially if the convention is hosted by somebody like HackerOne, they will have the proper the proper the proper trust things in place. It's not gonna be like, hey, you can just talk about anything that you heard in there. No, you have to at least keep, I imagine, some client psychiatrist privileges. Let's tell it like, let's name it like that. But just being able to talk to somebody about that stuff in private can help a lot, I think. And we are in group now, so I know that it's hard to talk about those things, especially if you're somebody who's kind of introvert. You're not gonna come out in a group and say, yeah, I've experienced this and this and that. I was an introvert until like maybe 2 years ago. I was a very big introvert. I wouldn't talk at all. I would just observe a lot. And about 2 years ago, I completely flipped my switch around, and I don't know what happened there, but now I just blurt out whatever comes into my mind, sometimes to the annoyance of some people, but I'm sorry about that. That's just my mind. I've had that. It's I've had a problem with being introvert because I noticed that everybody was steamrolling over me. They weren't taking my opinion into account. And even though I thought I was observing and thinking about things, apparently I was thinking for too long because everybody was taking decisions while I was talking. Hello, my friend Anush. How are you doing? We can't hear you well, my friend. I don't know if there's something with your microphone.
I'm sorry.
It's not a problem. Now I can hear you. Oh, it's okay. You can unmute yourself. Do you have anything to add to the conversation? Please feel free to. I love to hear what you guys have gone through or been through. Like, don't know if there's any bug bounty hunters in here, but you might have found like maybe 50 duplicates or something like that. Find it very frustrating.
I just want to say it's brave of you to make that switch. I know you said you kind of did it unconsciously, but I'm sure there was some conscious to it. And being an introvert, that's brave of you to do that. And I hope you realize that that's how most people live. I'm an introvert too, but when you talk to people, it's like, yeah, I don't think about what I'm about to say and think it over in my head a million times. Most people aren't like that. A lot of introverts do struggle with that. It's brave of you to make that switch.
I think at some point it was just because I realized I didn't have much to lose anymore. You guys probably realized this about me, but I was a junkie and I was very deep. I was at the bottom of the pit. Didn't have any money left. I had nothing left, zero. And at that moment I realized that it didn't matter what I was gonna say. I was at the bottom anyway, so I couldn't go down anymore. Why not just give it a shot and try it, right? And the first thing I did was just try to, if somebody was talking to me and interrupting me while I was talking, be a little bit more insistent on finishing my point. I just don't like being interrupted like that anymore. I used to, if somebody interrupted me, I was like, okay, you're talking, I'm gonna shut up now. But that's not the point. That's not how it goes anymore. And I think that was just like one of the first steps. I'm sorry, try to exploit. I keep blabbering on.
No. It's your space. You can talk all you want.
Oh, I want to hear from you guys. I prefer that. Do you have anything to add, my friend?
I don't want to change the discussion you was talking about, but I had another question. Like, I get like anxious about a lot of people stuck and the next step, like in bug bounty, and you have very like that. What's your advice on that? What people like um, take the next step?
So what I heard was anxious and bug bounties. Sorry, you cut away.
Okay. I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, I think your mic was like messing up or something. I thought it was on me. Should I repeat?
Feel free to. Yes, please.
Okay. Me and other people like get anxious about stucking in the learning phase. We want step like in the bug bounty. We get like very frustrated and anxious that we are not skilled enough to take the next step. What's your advice on that, or anybody that have like any advice?
Love that question. So you're pretty much feel like you're stuck in the learning phase and you don't know how to advance to the next step. And I've had that feeling myself as well when I took to bug bounties in a very wrong direction. I was looking at bug bounties as a way to make money. And that's something, make money is not a concrete goal. You can make money in a million ways. Even with bug bounties, you can report a million different combinations of vulnerabilities to make money like that. And what I did was I switched my mind over to you have a problem with learning, you have a problem with applying that learning. Why not just learn as you go? So I went into bug bounty targets, and if I came across like a GraphQL endpoint, I was learning about GraphQL at that moment. And the anxiousness to move on, that all stems from the same thing as the anxiousness to learn a new thing, because it's the unknown again. And you're stuck in something that you haven't seen before, you have no knowledge of, and it can be quite frightening because even a stupid thing like I'm gonna say an example, let's say I'm picking a new bug bounty target. That bug bounty target can be an HR application. I've tested 50 HR applications, and every new one is like a mystery to me. So it can be quite confusing. Yes, my friend the pirate, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, like I had mentioned earlier that when I first started like doing like the CTF and the hack the box stuff, that I was struggling a lot and I was getting very frustrated. I had to be and this is something that like was really hard to do, but I had to be very honest with myself in saying I don't know this and I don't know where to go from here. And instead of like trying to jump into things, I said, I'll take a step back. And this is why, like, I took a step back and I started rereading things and I started going over things. And that helped me like a lot that helps like to ground me to where I am, because like a lot of times I have things in my head that I know I'm not maybe like skilled enough to do right now. Right. But that paper, that reflective cross-site scripting thing that I was asking about, I was trying it. I was completely failing on this, and but like I took a step back and I asked for help. And a lot of times I think that like we try to like we want to jump ahead and like do things that are like amazing right off the bat, but like we want to skip over like the little things, and just get to the big stuff. But like, yeah, there's a point you have to say, okay, I don't know this, I should know this. And knowing this will help me get to that next step.
Definitely. That's a great point, that skipping part, because I'm guilty of that as well. When I started my OSCP, I wanted to get into hacking as soon as possible, so I skipped a big part of the videos, which I regretted later on, because of course I had to go back on them. And the same thing happens when I go into bug bounties often. I skip on exploring my target properly, and I skip on reading the manual, and that's not good because that contains gold. If I find a manual, if I, right now at least, because I've learned that through experience, if I find a manual, I'm gonna dig through that thing and I'm gonna see if I can find anything in the application that's not supposed to happen according to the manual, that's security related. I'm gonna look at API documentation, and even if it's not in scope, there's nothing preventing me from Googling that API documentation. And it's like a pirate said, if you feel very overwhelmed, it's okay to admit that you don't know something. If you see that there's something new ahead of you, like GraphQL, I keep going back to that example, but it's like a NoSQL database, and learning NoSQL as opposed to SQL, which I've been taught my whole life, was a big step for me. It was like unlearning something I knew and learning something new on top of it. It can be quite frightening, but it's also something that you shouldn't be too scared of and you shouldn't be chased away by, because the things that frighten us the most are the things that we benefit from the most, in my experience. If I find that I have to look into something which I really, really don't know, and once I know it, then I suddenly gained a very useful skill often. I'm going to give the word back to a pirate.
Real quick, there's something else to be said about that, because a lot of times too, when it was that feeling of everybody knows this, but it was that feeling of I'm gonna get laughed at for saying I don't know this, or I'm gonna get laughed at because I don't know this, and I found that, like, like people are like, one of the things that I did, right, was like to get better. I like hacked the box and stuff, and the CTS. Sorry, I keep going back to that example,
No.
but one of the things that I did was I started off by doing the retired boxes that had write-ups and stuff to them, and watching like IPSEX videos and stuff like that, and then seeing patterns there and going, oh, I didn't know I could do this. This is how I do it. And I was learning from that process. So when it came to, oh, this is a live machine, there's no write-ups on it or anything, I had a bit of a process from learning that, but I stopped. But people were telling me, you're never going to learn that way. You're never going to, like, oh, you're not going to learn. You just, like, that's not helpful to you. Do what you feel is going to be the best route towards your learning and towards your happiness. It's like such an important thing, and I didn't learn it till later on, because if you're worried about, well, like what everyone else is going to say or do, you're not gonna move forward yourself, because you're going to be always like in this stagnant state of, oh man, well, I was told I shouldn't do this, but that's how I thought I could figure it out, because a lot of times, like, our intuition is right on those things, and like I found that out too. Like when somebody said you're not going to learn that way, I did learn that way. So it's what works best for you.
Definitely, great point. Because, like, at the end of the day, you have to shut that computer down and you have to live with yourself. And being happy with yourself is the most important thing. Because if I'm gonna come back to this example again and again as well, but if I have to look into something which I really, really hate, which I really don't want to do, then that's something that I'm gonna keep putting off as well. And that putting off is only gonna make it worse for me. It's gonna increase my anxiety a lot. And I think that's something that, like, we should be very, at least for me, I should be very aware of that things I don't want to do are things that I have to do immediately, because those things are going to build up and they're going to make me very anxious in the end. And I've also learned that a lot of that anxiousness, and that's, sorry for jumping from topic to topic here, but I've learned that like 80% of 80% of our worries are caused by 20% of our problems. It's like this stupid thing, like from back from when I was doing all of these drugs, my teeth got really bad, and that problem is still haunting me to this day. And it seems like a stupid problem going to the dentist, but it keeps I have to go over and over and over again. It seems like a very small problem, but it's causing me a lot of headaches because I want to be professional and I want to look professional as well when I come into a room. And that stupid mistake that I've made, though all those years back, is still haunting me, that one little thing. And I found the same thing at work as well. It's like that one Jira ticket that I have to get through, which I can't get through or keeps throwing up errors or issues or something like that. It's always that one little thing that blocks it for me. I don't know if you guys have the same experience for that. Like a lot of our problems are caused by a lot of our worries are caused by a small part of our problems. And I think for me, I don't have much to add to the topic right now. I don't know if anybody else has something they would like to add.
I was just gonna say that your description of like kind of anxiety and everything reminds me of a recent quote I heard that I keep on going back to that helps me, and it's action is the antithesis of anxiety. And I try to think about that when I'm anxious, and I know it's not easy to do, but just I mean, ideally you want to maybe pick something that's really going to take a bite out of what's nagging you, but just doing anything will help with their anxiety. So yeah, I think it was John Stewart. It might have been someone before that, but when I heard that quote, action is the antithesis of anxiety, that really hit me hard, and it's helped me a lot when I think about when I'm going through an anxiety, which is quite a bit. I think that kind of helps with this profession, and it obviously hurts as well. But I think most people in IT, especially security, have to deal with anxiety a lot.
Definitely.
I agree. I wanted to throw. Well, first, I wanted to say that's actually a really nice quote. But I wanted to throw in, kind of building off of that quote now. Actually, now that you've mentioned it, so you mentioned that like doing small things can cause big problems. I wanted to kind of like throw it out there that we could also like flip that around in how we're viewing it and saying like, oh, somebody's snoring.
Yeah, no problem. They're muted, or at least they should be.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to say you could kind of so if you devote time towards like your goal, like a short amount of time towards your goal over a long period, you'll get a lot further than you would than you think you would. So if you spent like 20 minutes or like an hour a day for a whole year, it's a lot better than doing nothing. And it's kind of like the reason why I wanted to mention it is because it's kind of the exact opposite of doing a small amount of something bad and it having a bad effect long term, whereas we're doing a small amount of something good and it having a good effect long term. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case it helps anybody.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. That's definitely some great feedback. And by the way, sorry I threw out some random invites for co-host, but it's because if somebody tries to troll us again and I'm talking or eating my chicken because I had some delicious chicken in the oven, then at least they can be removed properly. So what I had something that I wanted to say about that, but I completely forgot about it. So terribly sorry about that.
It's okay. No worries.
My memory's a mess. That's why I have to write everything down. Even as we talk, what you guys are saying, I'm writing that down because my memory, it doesn't allow me to keep that retention going. What I like, maybe on a different topic, what just came into my mind is also that what really helps, at least for me, is getting good sleep. It may sound ridiculous, but getting better sleep makes me feel a lot more confident about myself. If I'm in a tired state, that gives me a lot of problems. I shouldn't be tired and doing things that require a lot of confidence, and bug bounties does require a lot of confidence in the end, because it's a lot harder than people think. Hello, Becca. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing all right.
Pleasure to meet you.
Ditto.
Would you like to add anything to our topic?
Well, I just entered, so I'm just a little unsure what everybody was talking about.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, so we were talking about mental health, and it was about InfoSec, but also in general. And of course, this video will be on YouTube as well. I've been recording it, so finally I worked out a way. I was live streaming it, but my internet crapped out on me, so that's not gonna happen. But at least I have the video on demand still. Um, and I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to the topic. I'd love to hear from you, because I can keep talking, but my experiences are just a small part, of course.
Hello.
Hello, Anush. Now we can hear you a lot better.
I just want to ask you, how can I get started in the book about this?
That's a great question. Getting started in bug bounties, I've made about, I think, 4 videos on that, and the main takeaway of those videos.
And then networking or go to direct, they will have you.
Sorry?
Should I learn networking?
Yes, you
good.
should definitely learn networking.
Definitely a good thing to know indeed. It will help, and especially if you know that most modern web applications, they're usually like a front end and a back end, and sometimes you can talk to this back end separately on different ports and all of that stuff. So it's definitely a great thing to learn. It's also, that's why I included it in my course, by the way. DNS zone transfers, those are useful, if you know about that. If you know about certificates, those things are very useful. So definitely.
Have you a YouTube channel?
Sorry?
Have you a YouTube channel?
Yes, my YouTube channel. It's the thexssrat. And there you can find a lot of those things on getting started. And I also have on the thexssrat.podia.com, there's a lot of free courses on getting started in bug bounties as well. So if you're interested in that, I might I'd advise you to check it out. I know it's touting my own horn a little bit there, but I don't know. Do you do bug bounties as well, Pirate?
No, right now I'm just working as a security consultant. So I do penetration testing, which is a little bit different because you have like, a defined scope on what you can and can't do. And yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit about being a penetration tester?
You can, but I'm a newer penetration tester, so I don't know how great I'd be answering stuff.
It's okay. I was just wondering, like, what I wanted to be a pen tester as well, but what kind of bothered me about being a pen tester, especially junior, is that at least in the companies that I visited, I had to follow a methodology that I didn't particularly agree on. Did you find your superiors being open to feedback and changing their methodologies if there was new evidence being presented?
I'm really lucky where I work. It's a great team. So yeah, I definitely feel like I can provide feedback, and I know that I do some things like a little bit differently than some of my coworkers. Like just in terms of like how I do my enumerations and stuff, and I've only gotten positive feedback from that.
So let's say you get your target right. Is it like you have to do your nmap scan like this? You have to do your NICTOS scan like this. You have to do maybe nuclei, nessus. I don't know. Is it defined like that, or Is it more like you have to do a port scan, you have to find open ports, blah blah blah?
I mean, there's ways there's like a method to, there is some methodology to how they want you to do it, but it's pretty open. Like if I feel like, okay, I'm running a like if I'm running an MAC with certain flags, like, you know, is it passive or a passive or aggressive scan? So if it's passive, then I might not be like, I might just be doing you know, like Google Dorks and stuff to see what I can pull about like the target, things of that nature. But like, no, they haven't been, like at where I work, they're not very like, as long as you can find stuff that's pretty interesting and it doesn't like, you know, go beyond the scope of what you're supposed to be doing, they're pretty open. Like they're very good about that. So, I mean, and I don't know if it's like that at every company. I guess like I consider myself like very lucky where I work, where I do have leeway to just say, all right, you know, like, I have this site and I just got to pull information, so I'm gonna, you know, run like go buster search and everything like that, or I'm gonna do a scan this way, and I want to do a more thorough scan on like a specific port or anything like that, and just like run like NSE scripts or whatever on Nmap. But they haven't said like, oh, you can't Nmap this way, you can't use the tool this way. They just want like they did at the end of the day, like people want to see like results of what you find, like what were you able to find. So that's how it's been for me, at least so far.
I love that. Thank you very much for answering that. I really appreciate it. So I have to go now because my phone is dying and I don't know where my charger is. But I really appreciated every single one of you guys being here, and I'll upload this as soon as possible as well. And I appreciate everybody who shared their opinions and who spoke their minds. I think we should do this much more often, and I'll try to provide an interesting topic every time. But if it derails, I really don't mind. I just appreciate every single one of you being here and just being awesome. You guys are freaking amazing, and I mean it when I say that. Every single one of you, you're going through things that other people wouldn't even dare dream of. You're not even just creating things, you're manipulating computers in a way that is it's totally different. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you a pleasant day, night, evening, whatever you have in front of you, and I hope I will see you soon. Bye, amazing hackers.